Hello, welcome to ZUI, Zshell user interface library video. It shows how to use the library that allows you to quickly create textual user interface applications for Zshell. This is the Dharma GitHub profile where ZUI is hosted. You can download ZUI here. Installation is simple. Besides cloning, you only need to add source ZUI plugin Zshell to your Zshell RC, and that's all. The page holds Hello World source code, which is very simple. Besides the project page, there is also a wiki, on which API of the library is described. Standard library, utilities library, callbacks. That pretty much covers all you need to know to develop with ZUI. There are also screenshots, so that you can see what ZUI is capable of, and even better, as cinema recordings. So let's start. We are going to develop an advanced Nmap frontend. Nmap is the network scanner that is often used. I'm going to develop in ZUI directory. My other shells aren't in that directory, however with use of a plugin, I can move them all with single command. Done. We will be using Hello World as the template. The template has application initialization and cleanup, which we will use too. The first 4 lines are basically to be copied to any new application that you create, with the exception that you need to change the identification strings. We will call our application ZUI Nmap frontend. Done. This is the initialization. You can read about the functions on wiki. Standard library covers them. Init, init2, also cleanup. This is the Hello World generator that creates content of the application. It simply generates text for single section of the final document. What turns the text into document with active elements is ZUI event loop call. It says to put generator A output as the first section and use single instance of that section. Let's add some buttons. Reply array will be appended with any new button that we will create. As you can see, we can use colors. This is the button that we will be needing, Nmap run, to run Nmap scanner. Format end. This is the ID and text of the button. Next goes handler, the code that is evaluated each time you press the button. This is a trick to make the handler internal. The library searches for string internal in the handler to establish whether the handler should restart the page, reload it or not. So we will be going to use no restart handler. This function will be discussed later. So as this one. And this one we will create instantly. A variable to denote that Nmap is running. Coproc call, very cool thing to run things in background and read their output. This is splitting that makes each option to be a separate argument. So here we will put host data. I will now add code that will remove any comments from the host data, together with spaces. Done. So we will be able to keep comments in the host data in a text field that we will create later. Let's add more buttons. Add set. Each Nmap run will use a set of options, so we will manage sets of options in the frontend. This one will add an empty set. Let's load standard library to be able to use completions. A set of functions library. Fly mode regen. This will regenerate the section. Basically it will run the generator one more time and replace the section of the document that the generator occupies. Let's create a variable for the options and add another button. This is the opposite. It removes option set. Last option set. This syntax allows you to slice off last array element. -1 denotes the last array element. And also let's regenerate this section. Saving of the options. So every option set that you will configure, you will be able to store into a file to use it later. Note that I didn't use quoting here, which means that empty elements will be skipped. If we skip the empty elements saving to 5, let's remove them also from the interface, which means you need to reassign the array without quotation. And also let's regenerate this section of document. 1.1. First module, first instance. These parameters are also available here. Module ICE instance. Let's embed the buttons in the document. remove the previous content, put first button first, then let's add empty line. This is the empty line. Then goes some text. And following 3 buttons. To add set, remove set, and to save all option sets. This is it. We have created a content which is assigned to reply array. Here are non-selectable lines. We can add the second line as it is empty as the non-selectable line. Then hops that are jumped to with square brackets, so this will allow to jump to first line of the module. And anchors, we didn't create any, so we leave this empty. Let's test the document, the application. There you go. 3 buttons in one line and 1 button at the beginning. I can... No, let's not press the buttons yet. Let's just see that they are here and ready to use. Let's define variables that are in use. Now let's observe that we can navigate across regular text. You see, I can navigate not only across buttons, but also across regular text. This is sometimes needed, for example, when you provide history entries for selection, like in the history demo. This is all regular text, however I can still navigate and select. Our Nmap frontend doesn't need this, so we will disable this feature. As for string type, this is the name of the zstyle variable, of is the value. So the navigation across text is now disabled. Let's load option sets from dedicated file. Let's prepend with commands so that no alias is being run. We will be loading also hosts in the moment, so let's touch that file here already. This is a syntax that loads given file. However, we need that file split across new lines so that we can populate the opts array. This is how this is done. Now the contents of the file is split across new lines. The F flag does this. Let's load hosts in the same way. Let's test if there is any entry in the hosts file. If not, then let's provide some default. Now, let's create text field for current host. This is the width of the text field. This is the first character to be displayed. So basically you can scroll a text field if you start displaying from other character. Here we test if my host data is already set. If it's not, then we provide this instruction text. So basically when you refresh this section, this module by fly mode regen, then it will not overwrite already entered text. It will reuse it. Now let's create the text field with a dedicated function. Obvious name, text field, and then go the three backend variables. Note that I'm not using quotation because of the no glob specifier. Thanks to it, Zshell doesn't try to use the square brackets as globbing characters, and this helps very much because variables look like variables and not like strings. Let's add third backend variable, and that's it. The text field is now created. There is no handler for that text field because we're just using its data backend variable, my host data. It is used here when running Nmap. Now some fun part. Let's create list box for hosts. It also has width. We could do this way, but it would overwrite the selection that user made each time we regenerate the section. So let's add a condition. Let's set the index only when there is no previous value. List box entries are separated by semicolons. We use join flag to concatenate existing hosts using the semicolon. Now let's create the list box. Three backend variables like in the text field. So very similar. Then go free user data 1, user data 2, user data 3. Text box also has user datas, and so does button, but to use user data with buttons you need to use ext version of the functions. After user data, there goes handler. For text field and list box, the handler is always internal, so there is no need to provide the internal string in the handler. Now something hard on the eyes. Let's update our host variable each time list box selection is made. Done. This is the data that list box holds. We split the data on semicolons. A flag makes the split result an array. So basically this becomes an array. And then we index this array with current index of the list box. So in general we obtain current option string, and assign this string to my host data field in ZUI hash. One last thing. Let's add a button that will save entered host. Let's save the hosts instantly after they are extended. And also let's regenerate the section, because now the hosts have one more value, and this should be reflected in section contents. Now let's add those new buttons and text fields and list boxes to the document. Sixth element. There are 5 buttons, and the 6th element is the host text field. Then goes the add button, and the list box. Now let's test the application. There's a parse error. Missing parentheses. There you go. We have text field for host to scan. We have list box with some hosts to choose. If I choose, it is copied. That's the part where we use that sophisticated A and S flag. This is the copying to my host data text field of current selection, and all this is handler invoked when selection is accepted. Let's try to edit the host. We can add some comment. As you can see, sophisticated editing is possible. Now let's add the host. Let's change the value, the IP address, and now let's add it to our host. Oops, let's add just like that. There you go, see? We have now 2 entries. Let's add a 3rd entry with some comment. It is here. So basically, the Nmap frontend will allow you to choose host to scan, and you will be able to enter a new host and save it. So very versatile. There's a warning. Yes. We need declaration of the array. All this is because I enable warn create global, so you are warned when you create variables without declaring them. Very useful. That's why all demos use this. Now let's go back to running Nmap and reading its output. We're gonna read the output periodically in interval of 300 milliseconds, thanks to following setting. We're gonna use second module with its own generator for displaying the output. Now we are regenerating second module, first instance. The copro's output is an array to aggregate Nmap output. Let's declare it. This is a button that will clear the output. Now let's create the document. As you can see, I've appended the copro's output to the document as a set of following lines after the header. Non-selectable lines, hops, first line as always, and anchors, empty. That's the second module. Note how not much code it requires. Let's now configure the second module. That's it. The second module will now be pasted as the second section of the document. Let's see this. You see, here is the module. No output yet, but it is appended. Let's create the run sudo function. It is called here. As you can see, it's a little trick. We hide our application, we hide it, run sudo normally, so that the password is activated for the short period of time as it is typically configured, for example on OS X or Ubuntu, and then restore our application by zcurses refresh. I didn't create wrappers for those zcurses calls. It would be an exaggeration. If sudo is prepared for Nmap call, then we can use it. Now let's create report options function. This function adds a message to status window. So before running Nmap, we're gonna see which options it is using and which hosts it is scanning. Now reading of the output. The timeout callback. We've configured timeout here. Now we need a callback that will be called in this interval. This is the name of the callback. If you declare that function, it will be called. No processing if Nmap isn't running. Read 20 lines at most. Rough mode. Read from coprocess. Don't wait for input. Concatenate, or better said, append the new line read from Nmap. Or, if the read doesn't succeed, stop trying to read following lines. Regenerate the section with Nmap's output if we had read something. Now detect that Nmap isn't running anymore. Job texts is a special Zshell variable that holds all command lines of all jobs running in background. We here check if there is no Nmap string there. If it isn't, then Nmap is stopped. It basically finished working. Let's instruct ZUI to redraft the screen, because Zshell will output job status message that will disrupt the screen, and redraft fixes that. Let's add a message to the status window that Nmap isn't running anymore. And this completes our detection of Nmap being finished. We can now test the application. As you can see, it is scanning without options yet, but it did scan my host. So basically you can see that output is correctly appended to the second module and everything works. The final thing, option sets. Let's create text fields for each option set. We create new variable for each option set, thanks to this append. And now standard text field creation. This is the ID of the text field. It must be unique. And now the opts array. It will become backend. Its single entry will become backend for the text field. That's the fun part. It really makes things short. Free user data unused, and now handler activated when you finish editing a text field. This is a function that will be called, and we pass it the index in opts. Let's embed the text fields for option sets in document. From 8th to the last. If you count the buttons and the list boxes, etc., you will see that this one starts at position 8, and we display all of them. Now let's provide the setOpts function. Let's do it here. So we take the given entry from opts and put it into the my Nmap options ZUI hash field, because it is used here in Nmap call. And one more thing, let's strip any comments from the option set. This strips everything that follows a hash together with the hash from the end. Now let's test the final version of the application. I will now add some option, use the same host, and run Nmap. Sudo was active at the moment, so now ask for password. As you can see, the status window contains the option selected, and there we have detection of operating system running on the box, requested by the -O option. Let's now clear the output, add some other option set or remove the set. Let's now scan with, this is from documentation. Nmap is a very rich tool, that's why the frontend has a deep meaning, because the options that you can give are very rich, so happy using. I hope you like it. And now, by editing this option set, I activate it. And if I now run Nmap, as you can see in status window, the other options are used. -T4 makes this run a little slower. I can, why not, prepare another option set, only -A. Save this to the file. The scan has ended.
Let's try the -a, it is faster. I hope it is faster. That's what I remembered. But let's not make this any longer. The tool works. It simply works. You can add new hosts. There you go. You can use comments. And it will work. As you can see, options is only -o. No comment in it. Oh yes, there can be the message. You can see it in the upper left corner. Now it's disappeared. It's a message from Zshell about job status. You can refresh the screen by pressing Ctrl L and it will be fixed. Or you can fix it by the same method that I use when Nmap ends. So this is really no problem. Again, system detection run without the comment. This is safe. If I quit the application and go back, it is still here. Hosts are still here. So everything works. Thank you very much. Goodbye.